You take more than 100 pills, go through lasers, shockwaves, and blood transfusions. You carefully track every calorie, every minute of sleep, every biomarker. You spend $2 million each year, all to try to slow down time.
I measure my inner ear temperature every day.
This is Bryan Johnson. After selling his company for $800 million, he started treating his body like a machine that needs fixing.
I run around 95.5 or 96. It's a result of my dietary protocol. After this, I'll flip on this UV light. This is 10,000 lux. In place of the sun, I'll use this device. It helps set circadian rhythm. It improves sleep.
His project, called Blueprint, is based on the idea that aging isn't unavoidable, it's a technical challenge. He believes that with enough money, science, and discipline, a 45-year-old body can work like it's 18. Johnson says his speed of aging is 0.5, meaning he is aging at half the rate of most people. He is now a face of a bold movement that asks, can we use science and engineering to beat aging?
Let me be unambiguous. You have no chance of living a long life unless you won the genetic lottery at birth.
Jay Olshansky is the professor of public health at the University of Illinois, Chicago.
You can't take somebody who's destined to die at 60 to 70 and add 30 years to life. By contrast, it's very easy to take somebody who has the potential to live to 100 and make them live only 50 or 60 years. Today, we've got a lot more people that are getting closer and closer to their genetic potential. It's why we've seen the increase in life expectancy, but it's also why we've seen a slowdown in the rate of increase in life expectancy, not because we've failed, but because we succeeded. There are only so many medical band-aids that you could patch people together with, and then you run out of steam, and I would say that that's where we are.
On one side, there are billionaires like Bryan Johnson, testing the limits of human biology with extreme biohacking. On the other, some scientists are skeptical and believe we're hitting a natural limit. So who's right? Let's start with Bryan Johnson himself. He's not just talking vitamins or going for a run. His routine is carefully designed to improve every organ in his body. His day starts before sunrise. He wakes up at 4:30 a.m. The first thing he does is step on his smart scales that measures his weight, body composition, and hydration.
Next is preparing the morning pills. Yeah, you can see we're about midway through the 2-week cycle. These are my upon waking pills. Okay, now I have all these pills ready. I'll do the green giant. I'll do 5 tablespoons. I don't know how many pills in here. I think last time we reported it was something like over 50, maybe 60. That looks like a lot more. I'll finish up with the morning pills down. Then I'll get the food prepped, and then we will go work out.
That longevity mix is just part of his daily supplement routine, which includes more than 100 pills. But it's not only about what he takes, it's about what he does to his body. This is where things get advanced. Johnson goes through therapeutic plasma exchange, a process where his blood plasma is taken out, filtered, and is replaced with albumin or donor plasma. The idea is that as we age, our plasma builds up inflammatory proteins and old signals that start to speed up aging in the body. By removing the old plasma and replacing it with fresh, you might be able to slow down or even reverse aging.
Everything I do is an attempt at discovering what slows down my speed of aging and reverses my aging damage. We follow the science and data, no matter how outlandish the therapies may seem. I know to most of you, plasma exchanges seem really weird, and I want to tell you that Bryan Johnson, who lives in the year 2025, is a normal dude in 2030. It's what everybody's going to be doing. That I go to bed on time, that I eat well, that I'm aware of toxins, that I don't smoke or vape or drink or gamble.
A recent clinical trial found that therapeutic plasma exchange lowered biological age by an average of 2.6 years in an adult over 50. That's not just slowing aging, that's actually reversing it. But to see if Bryan Johnson is really onto something, we first need to understand what he's trying to achieve. Before Bryan Johnson started taking 100 pills a day, he had to define his goal. Was he just trying to live longer, or was he trying to live better for longer? You often hear the term life expectancy. That is just the average number of years that someone is expected to live. But for people like Johnson, and for anyone who wants to enjoy their later years, the real measure is health span.
What we would like to do is extend our lifespan and especially our health span.
Dr. Ron Yakimovich is from the Max Planck Institute for Biology of Aging.
There are some interventions that are being experimentally assessed, I would say that. And at the end of the day, there is not one medication that can clearly give you exactly that. But there are changes of routine, changes of life factors that can definitely influence that health span, and maybe also lifespan can be better and longer.
Health span is the time in your life when you're free from serious illness or disability. Living to 110 doesn't mean much if you spend the last 30 years in a hospital bed, unable to recognise your family. That's not a win for engineering, that's a problem that needs fixing. But there's a big challenge ahead. By 2050, there will be 2.1 billion people over 60. If we only make people live longer without helping them stay healthy, we're just making suffering last longer. To understand Johnson's project, let's see how we've tackled similar problems before. We've already made big improvements in both how long and how well people live, though we use different methods.
Life expectancy was about 50 around 1900. It's about 80 today, depending on where you are in the world. If you're female, it's a little bit higher. So we've had a quantum leap in life expectancy in 1 century. The vast majority of that increase in longevity is a result of saving the young. Even at older ages, has declined. Some of it has to do with better behavioral risk factors. So there have actually been reductions in smoking, increases in education, all of which contribute to the rise in longevity. But there's no question that medical technology has been enormously successful at reducing the risk of a broad range of diseases.
The big change didn't come from a miracle drug. It came from engineering breakthroughs. Germ theory. After Louis Pasteur showed that tiny organisms cause disease, engineers started working on solutions. They built modern sewage systems, filtered drinking water, and developed pasteurization for milk. Suddenly, our environment became much safer. This kind of engineering saved lives in ways we'd never seen before. By the 1950s, life expectancy had risen to 68. Then came more breakthroughs: vaccines to prevent disease, antibiotics to treat infections, better surgeries, and new treatments for heart disease. People stopped dying young from infections and started living long enough to face chronic disease at 75. But there's a catch. That huge jump in life expectancy from fighting infectious diseases only happened once.
We've got a lot more people that are getting closer and closer to their genetic potential. It's why we've seen the increase in life expectancy, but it's also why we've seen a slowdown in life expectancy, not because we've failed, but because we succeeded. There are only so many medical band-aids that you could patch people together with, and then you run out of steam. And I would say that that's where we are, but we have the potential to break through that glass ceiling with aging interventions. But we better darn well extend out both mind and body, because if you only succeed in extending one of them, we're probably not going to like the result.
Since 1990, improvements have slowed down. In countries where people live the longest, life expectancy has stopped rising. We've solved the easier problems. Now the main challenge left is aging itself, and that brings us back to Bryan Johnson. Sanitation engineers in the 19th century helped people live longer by cleaning up the outside world. Bryan Johnson is trying to do the same by cleaning up the inside of his body. He treats his blood, cells, and organs like a city that needs better infrastructure. So is this future for everyone, or is it just something only the very rich can access now? Bryan Johnson spent $2 million a year on his routine. Most people can't do that. So how much money really affects how long we live? And is there anything regular people can do that's even close to what he's doing? A big study in the British Medical Journal looked at how money, lifestyle, and death rates are connected. They found that the people with less money had a much higher risk of dying early. But here's the surprising part. Things like diet, exercise, and smoking only explain about 5 to 10% of that risk. There's one social factor that stands out as the most important for living longer and healthier.
Education has it's like an umbrella. It has a cascading effect on everything else. And it's all of these other attributes that have a significant impact on duration of life. So higher education translates to higher income. Higher income translates to better food, more leisure time, more exercise time, better decision making. So to decide to exercise, going to your doctors on a routine basis, having each organ, carefully monitored by different doctors. It works, and it's remarkably successful.
So what does this mean? Having more money isn't just about affording a nice gym. It gives you time to exercise, access to preventative healthcare, cleaner air, less stress, and better food choices. Money gives you the freedom to take care of your health. So, if you're not a millionaire, what can you do? The basics still count. Good sleep, healthy food, regular exercise, and managing stress are the foundation. Bryan Johnson's routine adds these to the basics, not replaces them. But here's the interesting part. The science Johnson spends millions on is slowly becoming more available to more people. We're starting to enter the age of cellular engineering. There are 3 new areas in this field that don't always need a billionaire's budget. First, there are senolytics. These drugs target and remove zombie cells, old cells that won't die and instead cause inflammation in the body. Some senolytics like quercetin and fisetin are already available as supplements. Next are stem cell therapies, which use mesenchymal stem cells to help repair tissue and lower inflammation throughout the body. These treatments are still costly, but clinical trials are making them more available. Finally, there's epigenetic reprogramming. This is considered the ultimate goal, resetting a cell's biological clock so it acts young again. The JESDA Science Breakthrough Radar, which tracks new scientific trends, mentions digital twins of organs and cell reprogramming that could someday be as common as getting a vaccine. This is a big change. Instead of just treating disease like heart disease, cancer, or Alzheimer's one by one, we're starting to focus on the root cause, aging itself. We've explored Bryan Johnson's extreme plan, but there's still one big question. If we manage to live to 120, 150 or more, does that really make our lives better? Jay Olshansky says that focusing only on living much longer is missing the point. He thinks we should be putting our efforts into geroscience, extending the healthy years of our life instead of just chasing immortality, because there's one big stumbling block.
What would probably have the biggest effect in the long run? It would be the aging of the human brain. You could push out the envelope of survival for many other body parts. You can replace hearts and kidneys and lungs and knees and hips and shoulders and elbows. You could, replace a lot of pieces, but the one you can't replace is the one between your ears. You begin to lose those neurons fairly early in life. So if you want to open up the spigot for potential longevity increases, you have to focus on the aging brain.
If we don't fix the problems of frailty and mental decline, we're not building a better world. We just have people living to 150 but spending the last 50 years in mental decline. That's not progress, that's a mistake.
There is reason to believe that we can't live much longer than 120 years. So it's with the current things that we're doing and with lifestyle changes or development of medicine, we're probably still going to reach that hard end at 120.
This is the big ethical question. As we develop new tools like gene editing, artificial organs, and even Bryan Johnson's supplement plan, we need to decide what our real goal is. Are we trying to live as long as possible, or are we trying to stay healthy for as long as possible? Bryan Johnson's answer is simple. He wants both. He wants to be 80 but have the body of an 18-year-old. Whether you find that inspiring or strange, he's making us think about the question. If aging can be engineered, what's stopping us?
Anti-aging nonsense has become mainstream. You get people spending enormous sums of money and making enormous sums of money selling longevity. Look, I've got a book over here on my shelf where I wrote a chapter entitled "Why Do Anti-Aging Doctors Die?" And in that chapter, I basically explore people just like Bryan, who've been around for hundreds of years, who have all said the exact same thing, and they all die from the same causes as everyone else at about the same ages. I understand Bryan's effort. It's likely to be a spectacularly expensive fail. It's not like there aren't going to be some lessons learned. I actually think that there may be some interesting lessons learned, some positive and some negative, but it looks like a gimmick to me to sell life.
From the engineers that brought us clean water, to the scientists who created vaccines, to today's biohackers trying to reprogram our cells, the goal has always been the same: to protect our bodies. We might never become immortal, but trying to reach that goal is giving us something even more valuable: ways to live healthier, stronger, and better lives for as long as we can. And maybe, just maybe, we can create a future where turning 80 doesn't mean slowing down. It means you're just getting started.